Welcome to Toy Polloi. No Legos were harmed in the making of this video.
Hello and welcome to another video from Toy Polloi, and today we're going to be doing a bit of customizing and kit bashing to make a larger Terrahawks Zelda cube. Now if you've watched some of my recent videos you'll have seen I actually made some sort of custom little Terrahawks cubes because when they released the toy lines back in the 80s, Bandai didn't make Zelda's cubes. They made the Zeroids and they made a whole load of Terrahawks. As far as the baddie characters went, they just made Zelda, who you can see there in the middle. So I thought I would make my own version of the cubes. I did a couple of videos on this. I first made sort of a basic cube, which you can see here like this, and then in the second video I thought it would be quite fun to add magnets to them so you can sort of stick them together, and that was the sort of the modification. I also made some really tiny little cubes because I found on eBay you could buy some sort of plain white dice. I've actually got a whole load of these around my display now because I just think they look so cool and they're quite sort of cute little things. So I just really sort of have fallen in love with these Terrahawks cubes, and from that video I was contacted by Michael Light, who said that he'd found something that he thought you could actually make a really nice custom sort of Terrahawks cube from, and that is this, and it's a clock. In fact you can still buy these. This looks pretty old and sort of a bit sun damaged, but you can actually still buy these. It's a colour changing clock. So in the front you have an LCD display. Inside it you can just about see there's some electronics with an LED light that sort of glows, and it makes the whole of the plastic sort of change colour. Now Michael sent this to me and it is broken. I think that's obviously why he was getting rid of it, but do you know what, it does look the sort of thing you could easily turn into a Terrahawks cube. It has the right sort of shape, it's got some nice rounded corners, and it has this big open panel in the front. So today I'm going to sort of kit bash this and custom it into a large Terrahawks cube, but I think I'm also going to add some wiring inside it so we can make the eyes light up, because as you can see on this cube here, these eyes should light up. So yeah, it's going to be quite a fun project. I don't really know exactly what I'm going to do. I've got a few bits here already. I'm waiting for some stuff to arrive that I've ordered, but it's sort of intrigued me enough that I just want to get on with it. So let's take this apart, see what's inside, and see what we can do to make it look like a sort of glowing Terrahawks cube. Could be fun. Right, so this is the clock, and as I say, I've had a look online. You can actually still buy these. They cost £10, and yeah, if this works I'd be tempted to buy some more because it is just the perfect sort of size and shape to make one of these cubes from. This one looks like it's sort of been a bit sun damaged over the years, so it's got a sort of slightly yellow colour. I imagine originally it would have been much more this white colour, so straight out of the box I don't think you'd need to do any sort of painting. Although having said that, this sort of yellowed colour, very recently a few of the original Terrahawks cubes, the ones they actually used in the show, have gone up for auction, and they are made out of fiberglass and they actually have gone this sort of colour. So at the moment I'm undecided as to whether I will paint this in the end or leave it this colour. I think possibly paint it just so that it's a nice white, but it would match with how the actual props have aged to leave it this colour. Anyway, let's get this thing open. It's glued along the bottom, and as I say, this one's already been broken, so the seal has snapped on both sides, and I can easily remove this bottom panel, and then we can take all of the sort of electronics out. So we've got this top section which is just a piece of plastic, and in the front here we have this hole, which is where I'm going to try and add the sort of face with the glowing eyes, and I'm going to make that face from scratch out of styrene. The corners of this are actually rounded. They need to be squared off just because the original has a square shape to it. And then inside we've got all of this electronics, which as you can see is broken. I think that's why it doesn't work. That part of it is snapped off. I'm going to remove all of this and start again, although I might keep the battery compartment because I want to run this off one single AAA battery, and you can actually see it has all of the sort of connectors for that there. So I'm going to leave the connectors in, but we'll remove everything else and just start from scratch. I think can't see any point in keeping all of that. So let's just get going and see what we can make. As you can see, it actually came apart pretty easily, and I've removed all the bits that I don't need. So this is the LCD display and all of the electronics inside. We're left with this outer case and this bottom section, which is where the batteries go. And I've removed all of the battery contacts apart from one, because I'm going to try and run the two eyes. I'm going to be using some 1.5 volt lights, so they only need one single AAA battery. I will also be cutting a hole in this to insert a switch so that everything is hidden inside. So we can put that back on there and put the cube together, and when you turn it over there will just be a case of taking this lid off, switching the switch, the light will come on and you can put that on. I think that's the best way of doing it. I'm waiting for a couple of parts to arrive. I've ordered a switch, and I'm also waiting on some clear acetate gel, red gel to make the eyes out of. So I'm waiting on those bits, but in the meantime I can get on sort of constructing the actual face panel without those pieces. First thing I'm going to do is file down these corners. You can see they are rounded. I want those to be square. The next thing I will do is then I need to replicate this screen shape out of some styrene. I'm going to be using 1mm styrene sheet. This is actually 2mm deep, but I will just make some extra bits to sort of thicken out the edges. I'm going to cut something exactly the same shape as this to slot back in, and that will be the basis of making the replacement face. But first up, let's square off these corners, and then we can cut that out and we'll just start making. after about half an hour's work, this is what I've ended up with, and I have to say I'm already more pleased with it than I thought I would be. My initial plan sort of changed halfway through sort of mocking this up and making it, so I'll talk you through what I did. Initially I made a panel to go inside to replace where the LCD screen went, which was this. I've had to add a few bits of support around the back because this is only 1mm styrene. The little fixings inside are actually about 3mm deep, so I've just added some sort of fixings around the edge. It looks a bit messy, but it does the job and it's all going to be hidden. I then printed out the stickers that I'd already made for the sort of previous project and scaled these so that they were big enough to actually sit on the side of this cube, and was going to just sort of cut out a panel for the front, just cut the eyes out of it and have that as the way the sort of the light shone through. And then I thought, well, I might as well cut the mouth out as well, because this styrene is a little bit thin, so you might end up with getting a bit of a glow through the mouth. So I've done that as well, and you can see that actually looks quite sort of appealing like that, as it gives some extra depth around the mouth area. Then obviously I've cut the eyes out, and I have ordered some red sort of acetate gels, but that hasn't arrived. So I'm just sort of looking in my sort of box of bits. I've realised I've got some clear polycarbonate sheet, 1mm, so just using a red marker pen I coloured that in. I've actually coloured in both sides, and you can see that's gone quite a nice sort of even colour red. And when you put this panel on, it actually looks really very nice. So I'm sort of more pleased with this than I thought I was expecting to be, just as a sort of first go. It's taken me about half an hour to get this sort of far along, and I'm already really very pleased with it. The next job, because I'm still waiting on some of the electronic bits that I need, is to actually paint this. So I'm going to spray paint this one with an undercoat and then paint it black. You can actually buy black styrene, but I just don't have any, so I could have saved myself a job if I'd got some black styrene, just cut that out of that. But in this instance I'm going to spray that black. I'm also going to spray all of this part, so these two pieces, with an undercoat, and then spray them white, because you know, although this sort of yellowy tone is quite nice, as I say, it looks quite in keeping to the props. I want it to be as pristine and white like they were originally back in the day. The props have obviously aged over sort of 30 years, which is why they're this sort of yellow colour now. But I want this one to be pristine white. So I've given this a sand down with some very fine grit sandpaper just to prep the surface, and a coat of primer on all of that will do the job. And as I say, going to prime that and paint that one black. So once those are done, it'll actually start looking like a cube from Terrahawks. The other panels I'm not going to bother making. I'm going to do them as stickers like the original ones I did. So in the end I will print out proper versions of these at the right scale, so that we have one panel at the front which will have the lights on it, and then all of the others will be just stickers. I think that should look quite nice, but yeah, let's get the painting done. It's now another day later, and all the parts are painted and dried. I basically did an undercoat, I then did a coat of white paint. I've also got a sort of pearlescent spray that I've sprayed onto it, so it's got a slight sort of glint to it if you catch it in the light, and I've then put a top coat over the top of everything. And on the face panel I've just painted that with undercoat and then a black spray paint and the clear top coat on the top. You can see it all looks really quite nice. I can do a quick sort of put together so you can see exactly how this cube is starting to build up. So that's the inner plate. We then drop the black plate over the top of it. You can see we've got quite a nice looking cube face, and then that flits on the bottom. So it's really starting to look quite like a Terrahawks cube. Obviously we've got to put the stickers on the other sides. Now I want to do the wiring inside to get these lights lighting up. And since I've sprayed this, some parts have arrived in the post. So this is the switch that has arrived, and I'm actually going to cut a hole in the bottom of this. So you can see there'll be a AAA battery put in there, and then I'm going to cut a hole here, which is where the switch will go. I'll be wiring in two lights onto onto this circuit, and they're going to be grain of wheat little bulbs. I'll show you those later on. They have a pull of 1.5 volts, so you can run them just off one battery. Very simple circuit indeed. I also, the acetate that I ordered arrived, which is this. It's a red gel acetate sheet, which is what I was going to use for the eyes, but I actually think the marker pen on the polycarbonate sheet looks just as good, so I'm not going to bother cutting this up. I'll keep this for a future job. This is fairly cheap stuff. I think it's about £2, but you can see it's a lovely bright red, but it does match pretty much what I've done. So yeah, that's something I didn't need to order. I can have made it just using what I already had. But anyway, let's get cutting, and I'm also going to possibly design something to hold the lights in place inside. I haven't quite worked that bit out yet, so let's make the circuit and cut the hole for the switch, and everything else I'll just sort of make up as I go along. And here we go. After a sort of minor sort of mishap halfway through, I thought that you could wire these lights in series, but as it turns out they are 1.5 volt, and each bulb takes 1.5 volts. So if you put them in series, the first bulb lights up, the second one doesn't. So I've rewired it and put them in parallel, and I've made this tiny little bracket. Nothing actually that complicated. It's just a sheet of styrene with two holes poked in the back of it that line up with the piece of perspex on the front. And I've just put a couple of other bits of styrene around just to hold those bulbs in place so I don't have to glue them. And I've ended up with this. So you can now see there's a switch on the bottom. If I switch that, the lights light up. And it doesn't look so sort of bright actually under my studio lights, but without the studio lights on, it's really quite an impressive sort of brightness. So let's put this together. It's going to be quite simple to do. This should just slide in as we'd already designed it to do that. So that slides in place. This bottom panel, again, should just clip on because this is exactly how the clock was originally made. I probably could glue this, but I think it's going to be quite a firm sort of a fixing because there's paint all the way around it. So that does work. Then I will need to glue this on. I'll just drop a bit of super glue on in the end, but you can see that that will fit over there really very nicely. Let's just line that up properly. Yeah, I think that's good. Actually does almost clips in place, but I will put a bit of glue on that. And now if I turn my studio lights off, so it should get a bit dark in here, and we can switch that on. There is actually a light on top of my camera, so let me just put my hand over that. You can see it's a nice little cube with little glowing red eyes. That is really quite satisfying. I think that looks remarkably good, but it's missing a few details on the side, so let's put on their missing stickers and complete this cube. But overall I'm really pleased with how that has come out. It looks much better than I thought. Having the lights set back from the red bit of polycarbonate gives it some depth and a little bit of character as well, because you can move these eyes around now. yeah, really nice. Let's put the missing stickers on and we'll class that as done. For the stickers, I've just printed them out the same scale as the clock. This is printed from the file that I actually made for the previous versions of these TerraHawks cubes. And again, it's just printed onto some glossy sticky backed printer paper. I'm actually going to use one of these tiny cubes as a guide because the faces all go around a very particular way. It's quite hard to remember which ones go which. So you can see that's the one that I've made, and then we need to put these all the way around the other side. And then there's this sort of laser cross pattern on the top. I haven't printed out a sticker for the bottom of this just because there's all sorts of other bits on there, and I really only want this cube to sit one way. So let's get these cut out and we'll stick them on, and I think that should look really very good. And here is the final cube to add to my growing army of them. Now the printer paper I used was just a glossy sticky backed printer paper, and I printed it out using my inkjet printer. So the black is not quite the same shade of black as the stuff I've sprayed on the front, but it's close enough, and the overall effect it gives is really good. It just finishes that cube off, and yeah, it just makes him look the part. So all we've got to do to switch him on is take the battery cover off. There's one AAA battery in the bottom. Switch that switch over, put the battery cover back, like so, and his lights are lit up. It just yeah, just really brings him to life. I'm so pleased with how this has turned out, turning what was a broken clock into really a very nice sort of completely kit bashed TerraHawks cube. It's just fantastic. I'm really just pleased with how he's turned out, much better than I thought he would. Let's turn the lights off in my studio and I'll show you the lights glowing without all this extra glare going on. So here he is with just minimal lights on in the background. You can see they really look pretty impressive. You get quite a nice lens flare actually on the camera screen. I think that looks lovely. I'm going to stick this on my shelf behind me, so when I'm filming and you see shots of my actual collection, you'll see these lights glowing behind me. I think that's going to look quite nice. And it's pretty bright actually, considering both of these bulbs are just 1.5 volt little bulbs that require only one battery. They're pretty impressive. I could have gone a bit sort of further with this and put some LEDs in, which may have been brighter, but that would have required actually sticking a battery inside the figure. And I think using the little existing battery compartment was a good way of doing it. I could have actually sort of reworked it and used all 4 batteries, but seeing as you can run these off one, it was just a sort of a nice thing to try. I've actually bought these bulbs for another project I'm working on, so I've got a lot of them, and it seemed to just try and make a project out of what I had lying around. The only thing I've actually had to buy for this is the switch, the red sort of acetate I didn't need to buy, as you saw. So I think in total this has cost about £1.50 to make this entire thing out of stuff I had lying around, and it just looks fantastic. I'm more than pleased with how it's turned out. I do need to say a big thank you to Michael Light, who very kindly sent me the broken clock to use as the basis for this, and thanks for spotting it. It really is a perfect sort of thing to turn into a TerraHawks cube. And as I say, you can actually still get these. I'll put a link in the description as to where I found them. I think they're about £10 each, and I would say that's actually quite good value if you wanted to make one of these yourself. It's certainly, you're never going to see something like this on the sort of shop shelves. I don't think any Gerry Anderson merchandise sort of has gone this far as making these sorts of things. So if you want one, you're going to have to scratch build it, and yeah, I think it's well worth doing. I may end up getting a couple more so I can have a few of these dotted around, because I think they're so nice. It just looks, yeah, it just looks the part. If you want to check out my videos on making the other TerraHawks cubes, I will put links to those as well at the end of this video and in the description, so go and check those out. If you've enjoyed this video, then make sure to hit the subscribe button and tap the bell to be notified each time I upload a new video, and thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching Toy Polloi. Subscribe for more great videos. You can also follow Toy Polloi on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.